ministers who have gone through the training for the Science of Mind review the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind textbook, which is written by Dr. Ernest Holmes, and we're going to do that in this month, and we're going to have a series. This is the first of a series of 4, and it's titled Jesus and the Science of Mind, Jesus and the Science of Mind, and our beginning lesson today is going to be the thing itself, the thing itself. So here we are in the series, Jesus and the Science of Mind with the thing itself. I have a quote here from the Science of Mind, page 26, the great love of the universe must be one with the great law of its own being, and we approach love through the law. This, then, is the teaching. Love and law. As the love of God is perfect, so the law of God also must be perfect. We must understand both. So this week, as we begin this annual review, we want to understand that the basic ideas of the Science of Mind is often as misunderstood as the teachings of the mastermind Jesus. When the radical Jesus stated, be in the world but not of the world, be in the world but not of the world, he was defining metaphysics. And that is how I define the Science of Mind. It is metaphysics. According to the World Dictionary, metaphysics is defined as the branch of philosophy that deals with first principles, especially of being and knowing. The mastermind Jesus revealed metaphysics to the world over 2,000 years ago, and Dr. Ernest Holmes compiled his masterpiece of metaphysics in the written form in 1926, entitled it The Science of Mind. And in this incredible piece of work, he recognizes Jesus as a metaphysical genius. Jesus as a metaphysical genius. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, stated the radical Jesus. But it may have been better if he had added, if you will just stop seeking the truth and practice the truth that you already know. The philosophy of Jesus, like the Science of Mind, must be demonstrated. That is, it must be put into practice and become a living thing within our consciousness, a living thing within our consciousness. It's not that we're in this teaching of the philosophy of Jesus and the evolutionary science of mind. It's that these teachings, these philosophies, these great truths that are revealed in these 2 master works must be a living part of us. It must live within us. It must be the truth that is constantly, consciously looked to and demonstrated in our lives. So we go back to the mastermind Jesus, and I'm going to take this writing from the Holy Bible. This is from the book of John 6:10 through 12. For all of you who like to look these things up, it's John 6:10 through 12. And Jesus said, make the men sit down. Make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down. In number, about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed it to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. And so we know that the reason that the radical Jesus said, make the men sit down, is he wanted them to give their full attention to this great truth that he was going to demonstrate, that God is all and all is God, and all things are possible with God when we align our mind, align our consciousness with God. And so the men sat down and they watched this great demonstration. And we have to always remember and never forget that Jesus said, these things I do, and greater things still shall you do. And no other mystical teacher has ever said that. These things I do, and greater things still shall you do. The Buddha didn't say it. Krishna didn't say it. No great teacher has ever said anything similar to it, but Jesus knew and understood that the power that was working through him was God. It was infinite spirit. It was infinite intelligence. It was infinite presence and power. It was the principle itself working through him as love and law, as love and law. So Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he said, thank you, Father. He distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. Now we know that bread and fish are representing life, that these are symbols of life. So they shared the bread, which means they shared what good they had been given. You know, give us this day our daily bread means all the things that will sustain us, all the things that maintain us in health and happiness and joy and peace and harmony and love and prosperity and success. Share with us all the things that sustain us. So they shared with them all the things that would sustain them, symbolized as bread, and then he gave them fish, which represents life, And so we know that these two symbols of bread and fish give us the idea within our mind of knowing and accepting that Jesus was going to give them something even greater than bread and fish. He was going to give them an insight, a greater awareness into the metaphysical law of God, that love and law work together. The law of God is perfect, so the law of God also must be perfect, as Dr. Holmes writes in The Science of Mind. Now, the great Unity teacher and author H. Emily Cady stated, truth is absolute. Truth is absolute. So many people go around thinking, well, what is the truth? Well, we know the truth is what is changeless. The same truth that Jesus was demonstrating is the same truth that Dr. Ernest Holmes wrote about in his book, The Science of Mind. It's revealing to us once again to remind us of this great law that permeates the universe. It's universal. And so we understand from both these great teachers that this law is no respecter of persons. It's no respecter of persons. In The Science of Mind, page 26, we read, universal principles are never respecter of persons. The universe has no favorites. And the philosophy of Jesus in the book of Matthew 5:45, that you may be the children of your Father, which means do as your Father did, the image and likeness of that which is God, which is in heaven, for he makes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. In other words, Jesus was saying that God is no respecter of persons, that the Father is no respecter of persons. God, this universal presence and power and intelligence that we call God, this G-O-D, is this oneness of power, this oneness of presence, and this oneness of intelligence, this G-O-D presence that permeates all things, that spark of the divine of it that is within us, is always, always seeking to express more. And so that Father, that first principle, will give us whatever it is that our mind accepts for ourselves. Now, the world may call that good, or the world may call that evil. But as Jesus said, it rains on the evil and the good alike. And as Dr. Holmes writes, universal principles are never respecters of persons. Now, when we do something that we call evil, that means something that diminishes life. If you know that, if you look at that word evil, you see that it's live spelled backwards, so it's diminishing life. Then we have a consequence that's also of that same nature. But when we align ourselves with the good,